First of all, this is the first time I've been considered a legend other than at the pizza buffet at Pesto's.
I do want to thank you, Chris, for allowing us to wear white shirts under these jerseys. I think if you hadn't allowed that, it would have been a little bit obscene up here.
I don't think there's any doubt that everybody sitting in this table would tell you that the reason Valparaiso basketball has been successful for 55 years started with Coach Sweet, that things weren't very good when he got here, and he made them good, and other people have maybe added on a little bit, but he is definitely the beginning.
So when I was interviewed, they told me that I would never be fired for not losing games, but I would be fired if I didn't clean up the program. And so I came in here expecting the worst. And I really found that it wasn't too bad. We had 2 or 3 bad apples, but we had some pretty good players. We had Gary Connors and Fred Doling and Don Kais and some of those people. But we had one major problem, and the problem we had to overcome before we could win. It's the same problem I'm sure Homer ran into at the university. The student body had a defeatist attitude, and the players had a defeatist attitude. They were absolutely scared to death of Portage and Chesterton. And my first 2 years here, I showed them why they should be afraid of Portage and Chesterton, because we lost to them both years. The third year, it was at Christmas time, and 2 of my regulars and my 6th man were guilty of drinking wine at a party during Christmas. And I cut them from the squad. I had a rule that if you ever drank or smoked, you could never put on a uniform again. So I dropped them from the squad, and I brought up 3 sophomores, a kid named Scotty Ward, Dale Gott, and Butch Jones. Put them on the varsity, starting 5. And that was the turnaround of the program. These kids were not only good basketball players, but they were very, very competitive. They did not think they could lose. And they turned the program around. I had 3 players who turned the program around. And later we had the Jim Domes and the Bill Shrivers and the Joe Ellises and so forth who carried on that tradition. But those 3 players probably would be the ones that I remember most. We won a sectional that year, and then we won 11 straight sectionals. And the irony of the whole thing is Butch Jones helped us win that first sectional. Butch Jones went on and became the coach at Chesterton, and he was the coach that ended our string of sectionals at 11.
If you look at the team pictures, there wasn't always a Copper and a Hampson, or a Cavanaugh and a Redmond, or a Drew and a Bishop, or a Hummel and a Martin. There weren't 2 great players on every team, and yet I think the program went on and won games in those years when there weren't great Division I players. I think we tend to remember those. And what I mean by that, Chris, is I think if you took the number 3 through 10 players for the last 55 years, the number 3 through 10 guys who sat over there, and compared them to the 3 through 10 players at Portage or LaPorte or Maryville or wherever else it is, that those oftentimes are the guys who really won the basketball games.
But Skip grew up going to games with his father, who was a referee, and I think this one statement tells you a lot about Skip Collins. He's the only player in 20 years that I would permit to say anything during timeouts. Skip had a basketball mind from a very early age, and he made suggestions as a high school player that I followed, and I'm proud to say that he later became one of our coaches.
Many of these people up here were former players for these coaches. Obviously, they are tremendous role models. Their integrity and character in the last 55 years since Virgil came to town has been impeccable. They don't necessarily, that I ever saw, tell kids, you got to do this, you got to act like me, you got to not, but they do it. I mean, the kids see them in the classroom. All 4 of these guys, and Joe now 5, among the best teachers we've had in Valparaiso in the last 50 years in the classroom. You know, they weren't just there because they liked to coach basketball. Excellent teachers, every one of them. Great parents. very ethical in every way. They're just such good people. The four of them, not counting Coach Otis, combined to have 17 seasons in a row without a losing record, from about 1950 or 64 wrong year, 74, when Virgil was finishing up through 1990 when Coach Punter took over. They won over 850 games, the four of them, in those years.
I remember obviously the semi-state 4 overtime game. My memory there, of course, was Tim Bishop's shot to win the game, and then I remember going in the locker room after the game, and we'd played all day. We'd played in the morning against McCutcheon, a tough team, and we only beat them by 5 or 6 points, and then we played 4 overtimes in a semi-state championship, and Tim made the winning basket. And I remember going in and seeing Bryce in the shower. He had the water on him, but he was just leaning against the concrete wall like that, and that was his shower. He wasn't about to wash himself off. All he had left was just leaning up against the wall. Bishop, meanwhile, is jumping all over the place because he had boundless energy. It was amazing. He was just everywhere, and I don't think he was tired. Everybody else was exhausted.
My first year here, I saw Rob Cavanaugh and Dave Redmond score about combined, about 48 a game combined. The regional game, 112 to 100. Obviously, I didn't make the NBA on my defense, so I was thrilled that I was coming to Valpo and we were going to score 100 points in high school. Valpo was a great fit for me, and character-wise, I think the tradition that the coaches have passed down through the generations. Being a coach now, I get to go out and see other kids and other programs, and there's no question there has to be a deep foundation laid for a program to be good.
This is a great place, in terms of the fan support. And I look back at one night in 1977 when Indiana State, at 24-2 and desperately trying to get into the NCAA tournament with a sophomore transfer named Larry Bird, came to Hilltop Gym, and we had over 4,000 people there. And there were 5,000 at the sectional championship game, and I think you were playing Chesterton maybe or something. And there were 9,000 or 10,000 people watching basketball in this town, and there were about 22,000 people then. Basketball is a big deal here, and it's great to be a part of it.
I hope everyone knows where they were when the shot they saw for the first time. And it truly amazes me that it's been 10, 11 years now, and because ESPN still votes at 1, 2, or 3 every year, that every year with March Madness we get a chance to see the shot again. And so that would be obviously, the best thing. But to get there, Bryce also made several really good shots to get us to the Sweet 16 that were very, very big.
Well, as Bryce said, I don't want to pick on Dave Redmond, but Dave and I played so many years together, and I just have a lot of funny stories I can remember about Dave. But there's so many times that I can remember Coach Collins or Coach Punter or Coach Drew drawing up a play, and they said, "Everybody got it?" They draw it up again, and Dave and I we get out of the huddle, we start walking out on the court, and Dave says, "Rob, what do I do?" and it used to amaze me because 90% of the time it was set up for him to get a shot. And I'm like, "Dave, you're going to get a three-pointer in the corner."
So much when you're involved in athletics, so many things that are memorable have nothing to do with the court or the field or whatever sport you're talking about. The victories and the losses tend to fade from your mind pretty quickly. But I think it's the fact that your relationship with other people is always the most important factor.
And I do want to point out one thing, however, that I've seen John Knauff at a pizza place. He's a legend.
Legend.